I'm back. Did you miss me? So it's been a while since I've posted a video. Uh, Basically, work has just been insane. I'm mostly working from home, but the nature of what I'm doing means that I'm ended up doing a lot more work under the circumstances. So anyway, I've got a couple other videos coming up here. A couple of videos for opening some vintage packs from the late 70s, early 80s. But what I wanted to do today is talk about my what's kind of now becoming my primary vintage project. Now I got a couple other vintage projects going. I've already done a video on the '63 Fleer set, which I'm still gradually working on. But I wanted to do one of the classic sets, top sets from the '50s. And after kind of thinking about it, I decided to go with the 1955 top set for a couple of reasons. One of which is that it's only 206 cards. Now the numbering goes to 210, but there were 4 slots that weren't filled. This was back in the day where some individual players had contracts with other companies and such. Whereas nowadays basically the MLB Players Association, they kind of all it's all in. So there's some players missing, and for whatever reasons they just didn't make a big set that year. But the other thing is that it's a very attractive design, and the more I'm doing this, more I'm collecting this, the more I'm liking this as certainly my favorite design from the era, and one of my favorite card designs of all time. So one of the things about the 55 top set is that there's no Mickey Mantle. And that is both plus and minus. It's a minus because, of course, it's Mickey Mantle. It's a plus, though, because you don't have to pay a fortune for a Mickey Mantle card. I don't know what a 55 Mantle would go for if it had been part of the set. However, there are 3 key rookies. There are 3 Hall of Fame rookies in this set. Sandy Koufax, Harman Killebrew, and Roberto Clemente. And I'm not quite sure why, but the Clemente rookie is the most expensive card of the set. I'm not sure why it's more expensive than Koufax. Clemente is a perfectly good choice, to have as the most expensive, most valuable card in a set. Not quite sure where there's that dynamic. But there are many other Hall of Famers. Looking at the list, I have Ted Williams, Al Kaline, Billy Herman, Hal Newhouser, Ernie Banks, Warren Spahn, Hank Aaron, Jackie Robinson, Monty Irvin, Eddie Matthews, Phil Rizzuto, Willie Mays, Yogi Berra, and Duke Snider. Those are all the player Hall of Famers. I'm not 100% certain whether there are any Hall of Fame managers in the set. I don't care much about that. But I think that makes 17 Hall of Famers. So it's got a lot of star power. But because it's not a huge set, and because it is missing, Mantle and a couple other players, it's maybe a little more affordable while still being a very good set. Now I'm showing what you've been seeing here is Harvey Haddix. No particular reason for showing Haddix, except that to point out that Haddix pitched arguably the best game in Major League history in 1959. He threw 12 perfect innings. He struck out 8, but this was against this is when he was with the Pirates, pitching against the Milwaukee Braves. But then in the bottom of the 13th, his Pirates couldn't score. The bottom of the 13th, the first batter reached on an error. I think that was Felix Mantilla. Then Eddie Matthews, of all people, who big power hitter, 500 home run club, bunted him over to second. Hank Aaron was walked intentionally, and then Joe Adcock hit what would have been a 3-run home run, except that in all the confusion, Adcock passed Hank Aaron on the base paths, and so they just counted the one run. Adcock got credit for a double, which was the only hit in the game, and so Spahn lost, or Spahn Haddix lost 1-0. Of course, Lou Burdett threw a 12-hit shutout in 13 innings, which is a pretty impressive start by itself. But anyway, this Harvey Haddix is actually fairly early in his career. He had a tremendous rookie year in 52 or 53, and he had a very good career. Not a Hall of Fame quality career, but a good career. Now, you see that's PSA graded. So here's my stack. So this is my stack of PSA graded cards that I've accumulated over the last several months. And my stack of raw cards. And right now I'm at about 50-50. I have about 20 graded cards and about 20 raw cards. And so I may get these raw cards graded at some point. Probably will at some point, but I'm not worrying too much about that. And my goal is roughly to get everything except for the most expensive star cards in roughly near mint condition, around PSA 7. Either actually PSA 7 or what would probably be the equivalent of PSA 7. And maybe some a little bit lower, maybe some a little bit higher, depending on what I can find and what kind of prices I can get. And of course, this set, there are a lot of, still most of the cards are commons. There are certainly players that in this set that I'd never really heard of, some that I had. This is one of the advantages, though, of collecting something from the 50s rather than, say, collecting like the T206 tobacco cards, because, I do have a sense of some of the common players here in the 50s set, because some of them may have played into the 60s, whereas I do not have a good feel for the common players of the early 1900s, over 100 years ago. So there's the raw cards. Also, there are high numbered cards. This was issued in series. This is one of these doing the series. So the later cards that are not as common, the higher numbers are not as common, so they command a premium. And so even some of the commons in the high numbers, I may not want to get in quite as good condition just to save a little money. So here we can go through the ones that I have graded. Again, most of these are roughly around 7. There's Alex Grammas at 7.5. And basically I'm buying ones where the price seems reasonable compared to what other ones have been going as. Even the commons in vintage cards, the prices have gone up. They haven't gone up as dramatically as the star cards, but they're still going up. So this is going to be a long-term project, so I don't want to, I'm trying to balance this. I don't want to, wait a long time and hope the prices come down, because that may or may not happen. That's especially true with the star cards. But I can't spend the kind of money to get the whole set all at once in this kind of quality. And I have a number. I've kind of looked through this and kind of figured out roughly a number for about how much this whole set is going to cost. And it's a reasonable number for a period of many years. There's a PSA 8 Johnny Riddle. I'll show you the backs of the cards. These are just in order of the card number. And none of these that are graded are any of the high numbers. Those are above 160 and especially above 170. Let's go back to Haddix. So the back of the card has a nice design as well. They really got this right. So they got the little cartoon here, and that's some kind of a question about the game of baseball. So they have some where you're the ump and you have to. It's about the rules of the game. There are some these. So that's the you're the ump. There's the definitions, which are learning about the different slang used in baseball. There's also puzzlers, where they ask you basically some trivia question about baseball. There's also a true or false that's similar to that. I think that's the only, and there's also record breakers. I think that's 5. I think there's just the 5 different backs, 5 different types of backs. And they have a nice little write-up of the player, and they have their stats here. So they have the stats for 1954, their lifetime stats. If it's a player who is just coming up from the minors, for the lifetime stats, they actually might give the minor league stats for that. I have one here. So Ray Norelski. So this is that's his 1954 major league stats, and then here at the bottom that asterisk means that these are his lifetime minor league stats on the bottom. So they mix and match on those sometimes. The backs typically are brown, brownish color. I think sometimes they can be more of a whitish color. I don't really have any good examples of that. No, I have some. Actually, I take that back. I do have some that are lighter than others. You can definitely see a difference there. I'm not sure whether that's just age, but it's also the kind of stock they used and all of that. Looks like this card may be actually kind of small. Maybe it's been trimmed. That's one thing you have to worry about, especially with these older cards, buying raw cards, is whether they've been trimmed or not. The hope is that when you buy them graded, that they haven't been trimmed. But even that certainly isn't any kind of a guarantee especially if you've read through some of the threads on some of the main online forums for baseball cards. Now I'm saving the best here for last. Now I said there are 17 Hall of Famers, and I've picked up 2 of those. So the first one, which honestly I think should, in my mind, maybe should be a little more expensive than some of the others, but it isn't. Warren Spahn. I think he's a bit underrated he's a Hall of Famer, of course, but I got this one in PSA 6, and this was a buy it now on eBay, and the price was quite reasonable for a buy it now. That's one of the things. A lot of people will put up cards, and they'll put up pretty kind of ridiculous prices, hoping somebody will bite. But the people who really want to sell the cards, you can find some that are quite reasonably priced. Otherwise, you try to get lucky in an auction and try to hope that no big spenders show up in there. But of course, Warren Spahn, 363 wins in his career. He pitched forever. Really a tremendous career. This is about in the middle of his career. So at this point he was 166 and 110. He had yet another year of winning 20 games. He won 20 games like 8 or 9 times or something like that. For the time, he was a fairly good strikeout pitcher. He's still way up there on the list of all-time strikeouts, even though he pitched in an era where strikeouts were not, certainly not as common as they are now. But he pitched over 5,000 innings. Another, really great player, extremely deserving Hall of Famer. Now, I said I've got another Hall of Famer, and in fact, it's one of the rookie cards. So this is Harman Killebrew. So this is the Killebrew rookie card. And in fact, you can see that in 1954 he played in 9 games and got 13 at bats. So he did not play in the minors. He didn't come up in the minors. He was what they called then a bonus baby. So if a team paid a player a signing bonus over a certain amount, they couldn't just dump him in the minors. They had to bring him to the majors, and that. So if you really wanted somebody, you spent the money, and then they had to come to the majors, which worked out really well for Killebrew. Koufax was another bonus baby. it took him a while to become a great pitcher. But of course, Killebrew had a great Hall of Fame career. Um, uh, Tremendous home run hitter, over 500 home runs. This card is a 5, and the reason why it's a 5, number 1, is this corner. It's got some damage. And number 2, you may have to look carefully there. There's a little bit of a scratch on the card. That's on the card and not the plastic. A little scratch across his right eye, or just near his right eye. And I mean that's enough. I mean this would easily be a 6 if it wasn't. I think with that scratch, this would probably be a 6 if it wasn't for that. I'm not thrilled by having that little scratch on there, but this is not a cheap card. And again, I got a good price for the. I mean, a reasonable price for this. These star cards in this set, the buy it now prices they're seeing are really are extremely large, and there's been a very big jump in prices of these star cards from this era. And the card that's going to be the real problem is the Roberto Clemente rookie card, because that's a very expensive card. It's hard to get that card in a graded form, even if it's just graded as authentic, for much under $1,000. And so I'm not really looking forward to buying that card. That's a heck of a lot of money for one card. A lot more than I would spend for any of the other cards in this set. So I don't know when I'm going to do that. The problem is if prices keep going up, if I wait a year, who knows where it'll be. But that's one I'll worry about at some point. And for a card at that level, buying a raw card, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I would want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a raw card, not really knowing for sure whether it was authentic, even though being authenticated by an authenticator is not 100% certain. You have a much better chance. You have a much better chance of it being authentic anyway, if you have it authenticated. There are reprints. A lot of these cards have been reprinted, and most of the time the reprints are not necessarily intended to fool you into thinking it's the real card. But if if somebody takes a reprint and they put wear on it that's appropriate, they might be able to get something to where if you were looking at it, you might think it might be authentic. It might not get by a grading company, but it is one of the challenges. I don't worry so much about these about the common players. The thing to worry about there is that they might be trimmed. If you're paranoid about not about never getting a trim card, or maybe getting a card that's not authentic, probably collecting vintage is not for you, because there is always that chance. So you just kind of have to take what you get and just pay attention and keep your eyes open. So that's I consider that my big vintage project right now. The 63 Flair I'm still working on. I've got almost half that set. Those are all raw cards. None of them are graded. And the other one, the 68 Topps Game, I'm going to do an update on that some other time. That's another one, but I don't need to be working on that nearly as much. So the 55 is going to be the main one. I still have a bunch of unopened newer stuff that I'll probably open in videos. But I do intend to update the progress on the 55 Topps every once in a while, just to show you how it's going. Right now I think I have exactly 20 each, 20 graded cards and 20 ungraded cards. So I have about 20% of the set. But in terms of the cost, I'm estimating that I'm only that I'm definitely less than 20% of the way on the cost, maybe 15% or less, especially because of that, because of the other Hall of Famers and rookies. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.